pues espacios como estos son súper necesarios porque no solamente se valora todo lo que está ocurriendo en todos los pueblos, las comunidades de la diáspora, porque ayudan a dignificar las luchas, pero también el valor de la vida, el valor de la paz y el valor de la vida humana.
Afromundo is about having those narratives be up front and center for all of us to have these diasporic conversations across state, across national borders, and despite language, we can understand each other. So he's such a lovely person, but the most important thing that you need to know, in addition to him being a multi-instrumentalist, is I love the narratives that he shares alongside his songs, because he puts them in context. He shares our histories.
That's me. I'm Hubby Jenkins from Brooklyn, New York, every single day. Earlier today I gave a workshop talking about the banjo and our place in the creation of American pop music. But that's where we started. We started in Jamaica, the first ever written account of the banjos from a guy named Hans Sloane, a doctor who would go on to make the British Museum based off of things that he took from Jamaica, from the British colony there. And he wrote down and illustrated the first ever banjo, called it a strum strum. And that began the creation of American pop music and a long tradition of white people playing our music and making it fun. I'm in D tuning, or double D for you banjo players out there. Hot dog, buddy, let's go. Tell you when I get the chance. Well, I don't want to marry, just want to be a man.
Very happy to be a part of Afromundo. It is great to be in a space of powerful Black people doing wonderful things for their communities, for themselves, for the art, for the history, for the universe, so on and so forth.
It was very meaningful that we saw that film today, because it recentered me on the fact that I stand on the shoulders of so many women, and so many great women, and so many women, like you rightly said, Ronald, who are ordinary. You know, they move under the shadows, but they're creating great impact all the time. And so this is for my grandmother, who would have been 100 years old last year. Praise song for Miss May. After you leave us, we gather around a suitcase of your things. Choose, take, my aunt says, and I do. I take something mauve, sleeveless, with sharp blue lines and orange dancing at the hems, a dress you stitched yourself. And Mama, when the idea of writing a book came to me, I was like, oh, I'll write a classic traditional cookbook. I had been cooking at this point for 14 years, starting in New York and then making my way back to Canada. And I was like, yeah, I want to write about the recipes that are dear to my heart, talk about my family, talk about the things that are the most important to me. I'm going to read this first. It's really the opening of the book. And it tells you a little bit about where I was in the moment that we opened our first restaurant. It was called Saturday Dinette. Saturday Dinette was at the corner. It was like a little corner space in Toronto. If anyone knows Toronto,
there's lots of little clusters of neighborhoods. This particular neighborhood became my home. Our neighbors became our siblings and our cousins, and it felt so special to me to be able to open a restaurant that felt so personal. Our restaurant, Saturday Dinette, with its whitewashed walls and black trim, with its black and white tile and elegant countertops, it's the opening night. This is where we pull on from the voices and from the names of those that stood before us and that lifted the weight, that carried the burden, that ran the race, that cut the trees, that used the machetes.
Por la vida entera. Mi madre se sienta y enumera. Cuenta en silencio y sin hablar de mi hermana la segunda, que se vino muy pronto y sin dejar tiempo a mi madre para descansar. Y entonces nació con los ojos eternamente abiertos y brillantes como perlas. Mi padre recordaría esa mirada desde entonces y solía verla desde la distancia, como con temor rehuía la mirada eterna de mi hermana. Narda trajo la bendición de la tolerancia y de la vida sin apuro, de la vida vino alta y hermosa, y con esa negrura y elegancia que solo pude heredar de las ancestras. Mi madre se sienta y enumera. Nos sirve la sopa con sus manos abiertas, nos cuenta milagros derramando las lágrimas de siempre.
And at that point, I realized that they ain't coming for us. We don't have to do this on our own, right? And I was thinking, like, how do we form co-ops? Well, at the same time, the co-op that I was managing realized in 2008 that we were having a dilemma. There was a fuel crisis, and we were dependent on food from California, and that's how long we've been doing this thing. So that's how I got into it, and just realizing that if we're going to eat, we better learn how to grow food.
I was like, okay, I gotta grow some food, and I gotta do it for my people. And I'm also like a foodie. I love food. I love to eat. And so to bring it back to the nurture by nature, it's like, what am I putting in my body? And so I started asking those questions, and so really just starting to see these like webs come together and call ready to root down somewhere, because I've been spreading between organizing Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and through to Taos, and bringing this all together and feeling and weaving community in that way has been really rich. And so that's how I got into it. And
for some reason, people don't like to identify with being country. You know, but see, South Central is country, East LA is country, Boyle Heights, which is not central to East LA, you know, is very, you got the Japanese, Chinese, Jewish, Mexicans from Mexico, you know, so it's a very broad, the black people from down south.
Bueno, es encontrarme con gente que está en las mismas batallas que una está. Es compartir mi trabajo, es importante porque creo que es un trabajo en común. Al final, venir a Afromundo y cada uno de estos festivales en que promueven, digamos, la solidaridad y la lucha de los pueblos afro son importantes. Y por eso es tan valioso, la verdad.
Communities hold basically the city's Superfund sites, over 30 EPA regulated sites, and a variety of other sites. I'm sure you saw those big tanks that hold the oil and gas in this community. There's probably over 45 car wrecking lots that are dripping mercury and oil and all kinds of toxins into the ground, right? So Mountain View has a long history, and San Jose, and it's a history of racism, right? Because we know that zoning happened so that all this toxic and contaminating industries could be in these two communities, which are majority Mexicano, Chicano, and Black. It's the first urban wildlife refuge being built from the ground up west of the Mississippi. It was just phenomenal that a group of women took it upon themselves and succeeded in expelling all the backhoes that were poisoning their rivers. Shirley Campbell Barr is not, everybody knows her as a magnificent poet, author of multiple books, but she is, again, a conservationist, an activist visiting us from Costa Rica. What is the glue that allowed them to come together? Issues that they face, because it sounds very exotic and wonderful, but there were a lot of sacrifices made for what they achieved.
Soy Gine Balanta.
Good evening, I'm Ginette Balanta.
Soy de Colombia, de Suárez, Cauca. Somos una región que desde que estamos en el territorio hemos luchado por pervivir, siempre hemos estado en resistencia para habitar el territorio.
We're a region that has always had to resist to keep our territory.
Somos una comunidad que hemos tenido muchos retos, principalmente tenemos un río que se llama Río Ovejas. En el 2014 llegó la minería ilegal a nuestro territorio con maquinaria amarilla, retroexcavadoras.
In 2014, illegal mining got to their community with all their machinery. So this mobilization was headed by the woman who is now the vice president, Francia Marquez, and their community was joined by women of many other communities. And along the route, they would stop in each community and raise their voices to explain everything that was happening.
Uno es su origen poblacional.
One is their population origin.
El segundo, sus diversas culturas en los territorios.
Second, their diverse cultures in the territory.
Lo tercero es el territorio como tal.
And the third is the territory in and of itself.
Que es mucho más allá de hablar de tierra.
So it goes way beyond just talking about land.
Y por eso en Colombia son casi 6 millones de hectáreas tituladas en manos de pueblos afrodescendientes.
So in different countries, it works differently. We can mention the four that are most predominant. In Colombia, there's 6 millones de personas.
De hectáreas.
De hectáreas. 6 million hectares in Colombia.
Esas 6 millones son tituladas colectivamente, es decir, son propiedad privada, colectiva de las comunidades afrodescendientes de Colombia.
And those lands have a private collective title that are held by those communities.
Es decir, cuáles tienen un reconocimiento legal y cuáles tienen un reconocimiento ancestral. Repito, de 132 millones de personas, habitantes de esos 16 países como pueblos afrodescendientes.
So it's important to make that distinction between those lands that are collectively owned and they have a title versus the ones that have to do with ancestral conservation.
Three Sisters Kitchen is a nonprofit food learning center here in the heart of downtown Albuquerque, and we use the power and love of local food to create economic opportunity, improve community health, and bring our diverse communities together around the table. Okay, so we've been lucky enough to work with Afromundo for the last 3 years, that they've offered a sort of conversation and dining experience that explores the cultural and cuisine heritages of the African diaspora. So we invite chefs into our kitchen to prepare the food for 100 people at one of the evenings of the Afromundo Festival. And so it's always a party in the kitchen, you know. The name refers to the indigenous farming technique of using corn, beans, and squash, the Three Sisters.
So when people are eating food from different cultures and they're understanding that every culture has a different conversation about food and where they're coming from and where they're going in the future. This is our tamarind ginger molasses sauce, and I'm just making sure that all the flavors overnight have been really well blended. And so I'm just adding a little bit more of some agave. I have a good amount of molasses that gives it that dark color. And of course, tamarind is super tart, and it's a wonderful accent. It's gonna go with the black bean fritters. And you're really gonna taste all of the flavors, the fresh ginger. You're gonna taste the garlic and all of everything is really thought about in this menu. It's important to have an Afromundo Festival because I think it's important to continue to teach and educate about culture, about our Afro culture, about what it is to be African, what it is to be Latin, what it is to be Black living in America, living in communities that we don't necessarily always feel connected, living abroad, living outside of America, living in the Americas, really understanding our connection to the continent of Africa and how our diasporas are so vast and so beautiful and so broad and so personal for all of our stories and our journeys and where we're going and hopefully where we're going to be going in the future. So Afromundo must always be here for us to be able to connect to, and I look forward to every year seeing Afromundo. So I'm doing the akara bean fritters, and that's going to come with a slaw, a very simple classic pickly slaw, and then we're doing a squash blossom stuff with roasted pumpkin and a curry sauce. So right now, this is the curry sauce that I'm just gonna rewarm and reseason for the day, and this will go right on top. And really being able to let people understand that food is such a big part of our culture, and we can't lose our traditions that we once learned, and also just creating new traditions in the era that we're living in right now. So yeah, we'll see you guys tonight.
And also I feel for me it's like a healing process, healing moment where I can definitely be myself. So right now I'm incorporating the cinnamon, the ginger, the natural ginger, powdered ginger, and some camarón powder.
These are the black-eyed peas that the shells have been removed. These are just the actual peas themselves. So these are the black-eyed peas here, and the shells have been removed.
Putting a shine on plantain leaves. That I just learned you do it by running it over an open flame for a second. Not really long. It is my sheer joy, pleasure, delight to introduce the chefs. I'm going to just introduce them briefly. Remember, their illustrious, glorious bios are on afromundo.org, afromundo.org.
For me, cooking in general is a moment of healing, it's a moment of reflection, it's actually an art, and it's actually a language to express and give love to people. It's about you eating, not me showing my fancy dish.
The dish that is, I guess, a new signature is actually the dish I made for this festival. I was looking through the aisles and I saw these squash blossoms. Now, I'm always shocked because, first of all, the season for me felt early. I was like, these aren't typically available at this time of the year, at least back in South Florida where I'm at. And so when I saw them, my eyes lit up. Now, remembering that moment and then flash forward to 15 minutes later when we were having this discussion about what did I want to make, and I was like, maybe a soup, maybe squash blossoms? And I was like, but that's just so, I don't know. And of course, when you challenge yourself, when you question yourself, that's probably the best time to push yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I did. So I really connected with what I wanted to say about where I am right now. And I always like to make a seasonal dish based on location. I don't have a restaurant right now in my life, and that's a pleasure, that's a joy to tell everyone that. Taking a pause from the industry to kind of reflect on my life and my passion for food. Making this dish for you all and for myself and my ancestors today took me to roasting the squash, roasting the pumpkin, roasting the plantain, and I'm really thinking about the layers and the levels of how I wanted this to come to this idea of a squash blossom. Typically an Italian dish that is usually stuffed with ricotta cheese and other things. I said, why not, let's treat this as I would treat any other really robust, flavorful dish from an African Caribbean perspective, and that's exactly what we did.
Well, I'm really glad to have you guys all here. I've been talking to Maritza about introducing a more youth-focused panel since Afromundo started. Storytelling's power is evident in art and activism. Can you share a personal experience where narrative and storytelling significantly impacted your advocacy efforts or changed your perspective?
Generation Justice produced 2 radio productions where young Black youth shared their experiences being Black here in America and how it has impacted them in a way. Through this production and through their storytellings, I was inspired to push myself and also inspire others the way I was inspired.
I got to be on her podcast and I got to share my story with the healthcare system. And I got to share my experience in the new healthcare system now that it's transitioning. We really are a silenced community. We really do get overlooked. Our opinions are never heard. But the more people we can get to actually start speaking up, to tell the truth about what is happening, the better we are and the better chance we have at making actionable change.
Me and Bold Futures got invited to an event that CYFD was holding. I was able to give my public comment surrounding the child welfare system and foster homes and CYFD. Being a youth in foster care was horrible, and it was the continuum of genocide and putting people of color back in the system and colonizing them to be whitewashed. The work I do is for it. It originally was ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, which was established in 1978. It kind of works hand in hand, the work that I do, because it's always been about the children for me. It's always been about protecting ourselves and our future generations to come. I have been able to work with other youth who have gone through the same thing. Families, parents, grandparents.
Karen Jones Meadows, whose play we're going to see today, it's a staged reading. Brand new, this is the premiere. Karen Jones Meadows is an award-winning writer, producer, actress, visual artist, and educator who creates dynamic stories and events that are universal in theme, passion, and resolution.
So please enjoy Sterling's Silver. Harmony, USA, 1898 and 2024. Pre-dawn, under a massive full moon. They have huge camping backpacks.
Nobody wants to live in the middle of nowhere, Mom. Do it close to a city.
With what? Where? And don't mention selling this land, it's still ours. My favorite Sterling Brown poem goes, strong men keep a coming. Coming on. Strong men getting stronger. I feel them.
Sterling, one hand bandaged and splintered with a few bloodstains, sits wide-legged on his cabin porch steps behind his 17-year-old son, Everett.
Good evening, everyone.
You don't look so bad.
Thank you for the concern, Bobby. Tonight's going to be a celebration of wisdom, forethought, ingenuity.
Maybe he should go to MIT then.
He's not going anywhere he has to fight his way through. We've had enough of that. This is us 150 years from now.
A woman's word, you wouldn't know nothing about it. She gets it, don't you?
Yes, I do. And I don't care what any of you think.
I like it. It's so wonderful to be able to present in this neighborhood. And our Afromundo's goal is to present in different neighborhoods to be more equitable and be more accessible to different neighborhoods. So thank you to South Broadway. They've always been so supportive. And now it is my genuine honor and privilege. Y lo voy a decir en inglés y español. I'm going to say it in English and Spanish. To have Nidia Góngora here with us. Qué privilegio tenerla aquí porque es por nuestra misión. Ella vino a colaborar porque entiende nuestra misión. She understands our mission. And they come because they are as hungry as we are for these Afro-diasporic dialogues, because we need to know that we have shared histories and narratives and that collectively we can find solutions. Entonces, muchísimas gracias a Nidia Góngora. Oí volar en los mares. Marisa. Por el ojo de una mujer, se van a saludar, y dañan
la música tradicional con esta canción. Que compartimos para ustedes con mucho cariño y en homenaje a nuestro gran maestro Justino García. Muy popular, señor Justino García, hoy hombre muy popular, maripa en la mano justo a temblar el litoral. Maripa en la mano puso a temblar el litoral. ¿Cómo dice? Como se oía, como repicaba esa maripa. Como tocaba, como se oía, como repicaba. Si la ibas a matar, la hubieras abandonado. Si la ibas a matar, lo hubieras abandonado. Oye, Fernando, me vuelves a perdonar. Oye, Fernando, me vuelves a perdonar. A veces te gato si me vas a matar. A veces te gato si me vas a matar. Ay, los celos, quiero cometer. Ay,